Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Makeover Monday, and what a weekend, Kaustubha. Had quite a weekend. I got to make over myself from all the gluten I ate this weekend. Between the donut plant and those samosas, I'm a big ball of spongy gluten right now.
All right. It was a really wonderful weekend, though. You want to get right into that?
Yeah, let's get into the weekend. We had a great weekend. First, started off with the wedding, John B. Harrison's wedding with Kula Pradeep. That was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it was at the farm of our good regular Zoomer, Zuther, Bob Healy, the King of Hearts. And what a beautiful backdrop for a beautiful wedding with so many beautiful people and beautiful kirtan. Truthfully, you know, when the whole feast started, there was a little kirtan I heard down there. And I was like, where's that kirtan coming from? And it was all the masters. All of them were together.
They don't stop.
You had Gauravan, you had Vish, you had Ananta and his nephews. Those nephews of Ananta, what are their names?
There's Keshav, there's Vasudev, and there's Govinda.
Oh my God!
Each one of them is equally talented, and just like they can do all the instruments, they can sing like crazy.
They're like attractive,
next generation.
Beautiful, it's like they're like princes, like young princes, and they're just leading these kirtans, and they're enchanting the minds of all the living entities. And you see in this kirtan, these guys are just like that was like such a next level kirtan, and I was just like the famous Doot Baba, just like in the corner going, total fanboy clapping his hands. It was quite an amazing kirtan. I was so out of my league, and I was just appreciating
that. So I don't know how many people are there, but let's say it's maybe 250 total or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not good with numbers.
And every single person is such a unique person, gifted in different ways, you know?
Yeah.
And so we could go on and on. We could easily spend this entire show just talking about that wedding and all the people there.
The people at the wedding. It was like, this person's incredible. This person's incredible. Yeah. This person's incredible.
And all the conversations that you had and so on. But for me, by far, the highlight of that wedding, you tell me, Raghunath, what do you think I'm going to say?
Jay Shetty did have a great outfit on. Is that what you're going to say?
Definitely no question. He had a corduroy, corduroy matching set. It was very cool, but that's not what.
Are you going to talk about my chutter? Because I had a pretty. Oh wow, it's New York City Thunder.
Yeah, major thunder going on over here. But what was
I had a pretty good outfit on myself, Kaustubha. Before we get into praising people and their character, let's talk about my long purple silk kurta with a big Fred Flintstone raggy like chutter. I got so many
chutter. And it looks like he dug a Viking's grave and pulled that thing out of there or something like that. That thing is like, it's like.
It was a good look. I'm going to post my pictures today. Come on, you got to get a thumbs up if you like the cheddar. But, you know, I know what you're going to say. Cool. Johnavi's, you know, it's sort of like when someone's like, if someone's in the hospital and needs an operation, you never get the doctor who's the related, like the parent of the person, the surgeon is not related to the person they're operating on. So it's sort of like that. You usually don't have the priest that's the parent of the person getting married,
which made a very unique combination.
I know.
So Genevieve's father
was
the head priest.
Head priest. He's done hundreds of weddings. He's a guru. He's just a beautiful gentleman, and he was just like, he was just like, so everything. Even my daughter, 16-year-old, she watched that whole wedding. It was a long wedding. And she was just like, that's so beautiful. This was so beautiful. Oh my God, this, when they did this, that was so beautiful. These weddings are so deep and rich and beautiful. And, he was so eloquent, well-spoken. And then he would just like freeze, and like emotion would overwhelm him. He'd break into tears. He'd pull it back in. He like had us all in tears with that wedding.
It was, because it was, he was playing, this is my vision of what happened, what was going on there, is that...
Well, you had box seats. You were right up on the dugout, so to speak. You were right on the stage, assistant priest. I was way out.
It wasn't box seats. I was in the dugout, Raghunath.
You're in the dugout.
I was on the team.
I was in the bleachers. I was in the bleachers, the nose bleeding bleachers way in the back.
Okay. But the way that I saw it is, so Genevieve's father's name is Kripamoy Prabhu, and he's a huge figure in his own right, and as you say, he's a person that has for decades been like really played a role in the lives of, Bhakti-yogis in England and in the UK, and he travels around, and he's kind of been a person that's dedicated to reaching out, in the sense that like small groups, like I'm going to go there and I'm going to be there for you, and cultivating, and serving, thousands of people over the decades, sharing with them Bhakti. And part of that has been performing these rituals for people, whether it be a marriage or whatever rites of passage people go through in life. He's been there to present that in the Vedic way, but also explaining how that Vedic way is, how it relates to Bhakti. And so he's incredibly expert at that. But he was kind of in two roles in this marriage drama, right? Like he was the priest, but he was also the father of the bride. Which is, the priest is the person that's explaining the meaning of the ritual and conducting it.
Right.
And the father of the bride is the most emotionally, involved person practically, right? And so he was both of those roles were playing out, but also, he's a little older now, and he's moving a little slower, but somehow that enhanced the whole thing, because I was just watching him, expert at explaining the meaning of everything that was happening.
And it's so really good like that. You really understand, because you can get lost if you were just watching a Vedic wedding. There's so many rituals that are going on. You just get lost in a cultural like roadblock. But when you understand the meaning, it becomes so rich. The entire experience becomes educational. It becomes edifying. And so he was, what I saw was a person that his mind and his character, he's allowed it to be shaped by this beautiful Bhakti tradition, by Srila Prabhupada's books, just by through reading them and explaining them for so many years. You read about beautiful characters, like if you'll read, okay, Janak, the father of Sita, like how he, how he behaved in his emotions and his character, like when his daughter is being married, I suppose that's, you haven't experienced it yet, but you will before too long. What it's like for a father to watch and be part of, her marriage to another man. It's must be the most heart-wrenching experience in certain ways. Beautiful, and somehow it's a blend of loss and gain, and loving and letting go. Yes.
Yeah.
And I never even thought about that. Now I'm getting emotional. For some reason, I took myself out of that picture. But that's going to be a tough one.
Like in one sense, relief that, okay, my daughter's with marrying a very good man.
As long as he marries a good man.
Yeah. Well, that was a big theme in the whole thing too, right? Like Kula Pradeep is such a noble person, and so that was coming out in the whole thing, so he was.
If there was a Hare Krishna People magazine, that thing would be on the cover right now.
No question.
Celebrity wedding.
Yeah, and so in any case, like what I saw in the character of Kripamoy Prabhu, of Genevieve's father, it was just, I felt like I was watching a person who had imbibed the meaning and the beauty of this culture fully, and to the point where it wasn't like he was trying anymore; he was living it, and he was a character right out of these pastimes, you know,
Right out of the
in how he
yes.
spoke, and it was natural for him to live that way. And it was very touching because, as you said, like there's several times, maybe 4 or 5 times, he couldn't continue because he was just breaking into tears, you know. And then everyone would start cheering him on. You can do this. You can do this.
I know,
His
that was
daughter
funny.
Tulsi would come up and hold him, and then he would go back, and then he would just plug right back in and just start, like, you know, dropping the wisdom, and you know, it was just really just it was just so touching and moving to see. It was really special.
Let's talk about that feast.
Well, no, the feast was now if we're talking about the feast, we got to talk
Here's
about
an interesting thing,
Krishna's
my friend.
kitchen.
Here's an interesting. Yes, it was catered by Krishna's Kitchen, and their regular Zoomers and others.
Newburgh, New York.
Newburgh, New York, New Paltz. If you're ever in the area, you hit up Krishna's Kitchen.
Mara's got some serious competition. That's all I got to say, Mara. You might have to up your game a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
You know what? I was never a Pani Puri fan.
I never even tried it. I never even tried it before.
I've tried them, but they're sort of weird. They're little puri balls. Puri is like a little puffed bread, but it's like a ball.
It's crispy
little ball. And then this sounds crazy, but listen, hear up, Pete. You pour water in the ball.
Well, no, hold it. You don't first
break it open, then pour water, and then you drink it.
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
water.
First,
it's
there's
like
a filling. But there's a filling in there. You break it open, then you put the filling in there, and then you pour water over it.
Okay, yeah, it's got like sort of little potato pea filling, and then you pour the liquid on top
flavored
of it.
Water.
You got to throw it in your mouth because the whole thing's dripping everywhere. So they had all different pani puris with different flavored waters, like they had a cilantro
had a tamarind
water.
one and a cilantro.
Tamarind
one.
and cilantro, yeah.
And it's a real Gujarati street food thing, right? Mumbai, you see it all over the place, right? Everyone's eating that pani puri, but you know they got a ton of black salt in that thing. I'm not getting near that, you know. And you never, you know.
Black salt? Are you sure that wasn't just me stinking up the place?
No, it wasn't.
You thought it was the black salt?
Well, here, what they did here was they understood the Western palate may not relate to black salt, which basically smells like rotten eggs, and they kept the black salt separate, right? So like it wasn't you didn't have to have it.
That was smart.
But it was really good. I was, you know,
so that was
this
the
was
prep.
the deal.
That wasn't even part of the meal. That was just sort of like an hors d'oeuvre thing. And then they had dosa.
Masala dosa.
Solid dosa. Yeah,
which,
nice.
My God, those in the coconut chutney that they had. My God, it was like they were pumping those things up fresh. Where they had that
vegan mango lassi. Did you try that vegan? I must have drank like a liter of that.
Okay.
Because you were doing the priestly duties, and I was just at the back giving another.
Oh well, maybe you left a little early. Did you break away a little early? Is that what you did?
Didn't break away, my friend. I just I had a 7-year-old, 8-year-old on my lap. I had to just, I have that new iWatch, whatever it's called, that shames you if you sit too long. It's like time to get up, Raghunath.
Really?
I was like, all right, well, I'm at a wedding watch. And they're like, sorry, you got to walk more. You got to stand. You got to make your standing numbers happen today. So I stood up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You may cut me off.
Let's get to that feast. In any case, they had a big feast. They had the big tables laid out in a beautiful feast. But quite frankly, I could have just lived off the hors d'oeuvres, right? Like I could have eaten 20 of those doses and like about 85 of those pani puris, and and then been totally satisfied.
And then our good friend Mark Donut, who may not have a last name, we've just been calling him Mark Donut for the last couple decades. Yeah. He owns the donut plant, and he was the one who's like popularized donuts in New York City. And he was a bhakta. He offers all those donuts to Lord Krishna, and he became like a famous donut.
He's an
guy.
institution. Yeah, he's an
institution. He's a Prasadam institution. It's a landmark when you go to New York City. You find the donut plant and you eat these Krishna conscious donuts, and he came up in full force. The donut truck. He had.
Well, do you know the
tons of men
connection?
unloading those donuts, and they
Are
made
you
a
aware of
donut
the-
cake.
Are you aware of the connection
Of what?
of why the donuts particularly were there at this wedding?
No, what was the
Okay.
connection?
Yeah,
They
we'll
met?
connect it for you right now.
A couple met at the donut plant.
They met over donuts. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
because Genevieve's
Cute.
sister Tulsi, and her husband Amras, they, secretly arranged. They invited, hey, we're over at the donut plant. They called Genevieve over, but then they also called Brahma. They also called Kula Pradeep over,
Uh-huh.
and they were playing matchmaker.
That's
and
romantic.
setting that thing up.
That's
Yeah.
romantic.
So they met over donuts. So that was part of the connection to having all this. The
You can
donut
really
plant
fall in
donuts.
love over a donut too.
You sure can. And then for dinner I went over to the intellectual corner. All right, you had the scholars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had Mahamuni, who we've had on the show. You had Professor Edwin Bryant. Mahamuni's a
Bryant, got to
professor himself.
hang out with him
Professor Matthew
this weekend.
Dasty, Professor Matthew Bryant, and other scholars were over in one corner. And I went over there for intellectual discussions. Raghunath, it was really something. These
I was with the
guys-
party people. I was with the party people when we started hanging out with the kids and throwing them down the hill. That's where I was at.
But it was a beautiful event. So anyway, that was Saturday. Got home late. Woke up completely wired. Not only from that day, but like from weeks building up to it. Then in the morning, I had this Oxford study. I'm part of this Oxford study program, Raghunath.
Oh,
Right.
that's
don't
part
mean
of the
to-
Oxford program.
Part of the Oxford. I've become a Rhodes Scholar. But I'm part of this study where it's like a group of 6 of us, and these Vaishnava professors that are connected with the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. They put you through the Oxford tutorial system of study.
Seems like Oxford is much different from the time I was there.
I think I think you changed it. Right? It was never the same after you did your stint. And so I had to get up for that and go to. It was great, but for the last half hour, it's just like I was like I couldn't stare at a computer screen anymore, and then somehow I pulled myself together. My wife fed me a good meal. I regained my energy. I went down to the Bhakti Center where Raghunath was doing an awesome program.
I had a beautiful program with a lot of people on the show today. It was wonderful all day. I mean, they should get special points for hanging out with me all day. But it was a very, very sweet program. And then there was incredible kirtan at the park from all the people at the wedding.
That's right.
And my kids were there. I mean,
So-
I'm not going to tell you my Krishna miracle, what happened to that yesterday, but
Not
it was amazing.
with your daughter,
Anyway, huh?
with your son, with what happened?
My Krishna miracle was I had to do all these incredible drop-offs yesterday. I drop off one kid, drop off the other kids with Gauravani, because I had 3 kids I was balancing at the wedding. I'm in South Jersey. I got a 10 o'clock class, and I got to make sure all my kids are taken care of. And so Gauravani took care of my kids. I finally get into New York. I got plenty of time. I got a half hour left. There's, it's Sunday. The roads are empty. I pull in that Holland Tunnel. Traffic grind, 100% lockdown. And I was even looking at the cop, and the cop was like laughing. The traffic was so bad in both directions. And I was like, listen, I got to get to the west side. I know it's very close if I was to walk, but I'm in a trap. Where do I go? Do I go down? Do I make a U-turn? And the guy just looks at me. It's like, you can't get there. You can't get there. So I'm calling the Bhakti Center. I'm completely frustrated. Canal Street's completely blocked up with the police blockades. And then after sitting there, just throwing my hands up in the air and calling the Bhakti Center, I was like, I don't know. I might be like a half hour late. No car is moving in any direction. And they just moved the blockade, and they just waved me in as if Lord Chaitanya moved the blockade himself. And there was a straight line down Canal Street. Like the whole world was in a traffic jam, and I'm flying in the pickup truck straight across Canal Street, like on a beeline to the Bhakti Center. It was a Krishna miracle. I parked the car and made it with 2 minutes to spare while Kaylee Clips and Radhika Ranjan from London were singing away and starting the program.
Oh,
that's my Krishna miracle, people.
Beautiful. But we should just speak just a little bit. I know we're speaking. We've got a long way to go to get to Bhagavatam. But that kirtan in Washington Square Park, I mean, just forget about
my
it.
daughter said it was awesome.
As your daughter was dancing, it was like you had, because because it was particularly special. We do kirtan like this in the park all the time, but it was particularly special because so many wonderful people were there for the wedding. So had come from long distances, and so you had the most just imagine I'm just staring at it and watching all these other people, that it's totally new to in the park, just like standing there, like with
what the hell is this?
The
What's
jaws
going
dropped, with appreciative that
I
here's
know.
like,
Well, it's like, imagine if you had said, okay, we're going to get the super band together. It's like
That's
We
what
Are
I'm
the
saying.
World. Remember We Are the World?
Yeah.
It's like you get all these celebrities. You got Stevie Wonder in there, and you got like Paul McCartney, and you got Mick Jagger, and they're all coming together. You got the best kirtan leaders in the world coming together in the park that day, playing
putting
like
on a
next
free
level.
thing.
Yeah.
But not only that, like that's part of it, right? In other words, if you did have that crew, like you're saying, We Are the World, and they're in the park and it's free, and they're passing the mic around and they're passing the guitars around and they're just keeping it going, right? And there's no ego, right? So like
Involved.
everybody's happy to involve, and then so these people with the greatest musical skills are it's just on demonstration, and they're moving it this way and they're moving it that way, and one's singing this way and then the other one's singing, taking it to the next level, and the person that was singing before, they're not like, oh damn, look at that, they're like they're inspired, and then even the people that can't sing, the mic is going over to them. Why? Because it's not about necessarily how great you can sing. It's your devotion that's important, And so they're passing their mic around to everyone, and it's just the whole thing. And then people are up and they're dancing. And one of the highlights was, at one point, Keshava broke into the prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, right? Which are, the prayers to Lord Vishnu when he comes in this half man, half lion form as the protector of his devotee, his little Prahlad, little boy. And at that point, Ananta called over to Anapayani and to Kumari, right? These two sisters who were, raised as devotees, practiced Bharatanatyam, or trained as experts in Bharatanatyam as children in Chennai, India. Huh? Kumari's been on the show, yeah. And they broke into acting out the Nrsingadev Leela. All the words in the song, they were acting them out. One became Prahlad, one became Nrsingadev, right? And one became Hiranyakashipu. They would play all the roles. And then Achyuta began to narrate the story for the audience.
Wow.
And the two of them were acting it out in Bharatanatyam dance.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit of other kind of dance blended into, but based on their Bharatanatyam training. And it was just like, who else does this? Like spontaneous drama, spontaneous music, incredible talent, all out there in the park with a devotional mood, right? That just like permeates the entire thing and spreads its rays,
We are in such a great place in history right now with the tsunami of bhakti that's inundating the world.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to be here.
I'll tell you, people, when come to Rath Yatra time to New York, find a way, because all this stuff's going to be going on big time, and it's really something to be part of it all. All right.
I signed up Rocco for the boys bus tour.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great experience.
Hope he gets in. They have a waiting list. But... All right. Let's dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ambrosial pot of sweet nectar honey.
Oh, do we have announcements before we do that, Mara?
We're still doing announcements.
Yeah, we have Bhakti Recovery Group meetings today at 1 and 9:30.
Okay, thank you, Mara G.
Where
was Mara this whole weekend? Where were you, Mara?
Yeah, where were you doing?
I was working an event on Saturday, catering, and doing some service for Raghu, including driving Rocco to a soccer game from Newburgh, New York on Sunday.
Right. You should have. You got to learn that Pani Puri, or they're just going to eclipse you.
I know. I think they already have, to be honest.
Not in Columbia County, though.
It's true.
Okay.
All right. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. In loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamurandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus-like feet.
Okay.
Mara. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4.
Canto 4, Chapter 16, Text 9.
Text 9.
Text
We're all
9.
uncertain.
I don't
So
know
the,
for sure.
the bards are speaking. They're glorifying the new King Pritu.
Ugh.
His qualities.
Monday. All right. Text 9. This King Pritu Maharaj, by virtue of his affectionate glances and beautiful moon-like face, which is always smiling with great affection for the citizens, will enhance everyone's peaceful life. Just glorifying King Pritu.
Yeah,
The reciters continued.
Well, hold on. So we were reading last week about the power of this king, the power that he would wield, right? And it was kind of, we mentioned, it was kind of a blend of both. It met both conservative and liberal concerns, right? Conservative concerns that there's going to be law and order, right? He's going to maintain that. He's going to step up. He's going to be able to handle that. At the same time, he's going to be very concerned for the welfare of all the citizens. He's going to tax and he's going to spread that around so that there's no one within that kingdom that's needy or suffering, right? But when someone's got so much power, the worry is like, they're going to become, like for instance in America, that it's like a democracy that has this checks and balances system, right? So you don't give anyone too much power is the idea, because you just can't trust anyone. And if you give someone too much power, they become a tyrant, before long. So there could be worry, is he going to be a tyrant?
What do you think of absolute power corrupts absolutely? What do you think about that?
I don't think that's absolutely true. I think it's generally true. Right. It doesn't necessarily, but the idea was, well, if you don't give the idea here was that from a very young age, you could recognize a certain type of leadership in someone. And you could begin, and the goal was that the wise people, the people that were manifesting wisdom, manifesting great character, humility, kindness, wisdom, and so on, that they would train those future leaders with really powerful value, really good values from the beginning, as well. Not only both, character and competence, really good values, but also like they would train them even from youth, right? We've talked about this before. They would have that panchatantra.
Yeah.
Right? They would have all these stories like fables that you're getting that are illustrating what a ruler needs to know and understand. And they're valuable for everyone, but they're particularly designed for these future leaders, so that you would go into that with an understanding of how to serve, an understanding of how to govern, and so yeah, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, it's in general we see that power corrupts, but it doesn't have to.
You ever read the Stanford prison experiments?
No, Raghunath, I have not.
Oh, you might do that amongst your professors.
Okay.
No, but no, it's true. I think if a
Stanford,
person, I don't think it's always
experiments,
true. I think if a person is trained in Dharma, it's up to do with the person's character. If a person has weak character,
That's right.
then it can corrupt you. But there's people who overcome strong vices all the time.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think it's safe to make those absolute statements.
All right.
And I say
Do
that
you
absolutely.
believe that?
I absolutely believe that.
Okay. All right. Let's hear more about King Pritu from the bards.
Text 11.
Text 10.
Text 10. The reciters continued, no one will be able to understand the policies the king will follow. His activities will also be very confidential, and it will not be possible for anyone to know how he will make every activity successful. His treasury will always remain unknown to everyone. He will be the reservoir of unlimited glories and good qualities, and his position will be maintained and covered, just as Varuna, the deity of the seas, is covered by water.
Mm-hmm.
King
Sometimes the
Pritu
king knows what other people don't know, and some stuff isn't always public knowledge, but
Some stuff isn't
because
always
he's so
public knowledge.
trustworthy. Yeah, because he's so trustworthy. You know that it's when you enter there's such a need for transparency. When trust is on a low level.
Right.
But leader can in some fields may be more effective if everything wasn't public knowledge. Okay.
King Pritu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from Arani wood. Thus, King Pritu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies. For although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Pritu.
It's going to be strong.
King Pritu will be able to see all the internal and external activities of every one of his citizens. Still, no one will be able to know his system of espionage. Espionage. And himself will remain neutral regarding all matters of glorification or vilification paid to him. He's not bothered by people praising him, people glorifying him. He's just like, this is my duty. I'm just going to do my duty. Some are going to like it. Some are going to hate it. I'm moving forward.
And it's doing espionage and counter-espionage.
Counter-espionage. I should have been a spy. He'll be exactly like air, the life force within the body, which is exhibited internally and externally, but it's always neutral to all affairs.
It's going in and out.
Since the king will always remain on the path of piety, he'll be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy, and the son of his enemy.
Okay, that's important.
Interesting.
Right? He's not playing favorites.
No, if the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah. No playing favorites for him.
Okay. Just as the sun god expands his shining rays up to the Arctic region without impedance, the influence of King Pritu will cover all tracts of land up to the Arctic region and will remain undisturbed as long as he lives. The king will please everyone by his practical activities, and all of the citizens will remain very satisfied. Because of this, the citizens will take great satisfaction in accepting him as their ruling king. The king will be firmly determined and always situated in truth. He will be a lover of the Brahminical culture and will render all service to old men and give shelter to all surrendered souls. Giving respect to all, he will always be merciful to the poor and innocent.
So notice again that there's a blend of conservative and liberal values here, right? Like that he's a lover of Brahminical culture. Like that's tradition, right? Like a conservative value is like tradition is important, right? And it needs to be maintained. But at the same time, he's giving shelter. Like he's being charitable. He's making sure, like, sometimes the conservative values lead to just kind of people may be neglected, whereas the liberal value is like we have to care for everyone. How can you let someone suffer? The government needs to step up, and the conservatives are saying no, government should be small. And the liberals say, but how can you just let people suffer? So there's a blend here. He's got a conservative. He's addressing both levels of concern.
Looking for a good monarch. Okay.
Rooney for president.
He's got to be trained in Dharma first.
I saw Rooney walking around Washington Square Park, just like he owns the place yesterday. Like, yo, Rooney.
My 8-year-old. I got a call from Rupa, Kumari's husband. She's like, is your kid okay? I was like, why? He's like, he just wandered around the park. I was like, yeah, he's fine. He's no, he was under the careful protection of Gauravani's wife, Vrindavrani.
Yeah. Well, not when I saw him.
Not when you saw him. Okay.
No, but Gore's son was looking at him.
Can't be these helicopter parents. We got to let them grow, learn, experience life.
Okay.
All right.
But he was dealing drugs over there in the corner of the park. That didn't concern me.
But you know what he did say right before we went to bed? He had a long whole day. He looked at me and goes, Dad, will you read to me the story of Love and Kush tonight?
Get out.
That's sweet. Love and Kush
is his favorite?
Twin. Huh?
Why is that his favorite?
Why is that his favorite?
Yeah.
Just he's getting into Amar Chitra Katha.
Okay.
And he fights a little bit, but he just said, "Read me about Love and Kush are the twin sons of Sita." And they're sort of rascally boys, and they end up fighting and defeating Lakshman, Satrughna, and even Hanuman.
Rooney, he's gonna be. He could be the next ruler. He could be.
All right. The king will respect all women as if they were his own mother, and he will treat his own wife as the other half of his body.
That's kind of like what do you know the Sanskrit for that? Matri something. I forget it. But like the wisdom of like a man seeing all other women except his wife as mother.
It's actually a beautiful sentiment that we've completely lost touch with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to do with
you're not looking at women like, how can I enjoy her? Even if you're married, looking around at other women all the time. It's like, come on, man. Pull it together. Look at them like a mother, like they're mothering children. They're nurturers. Treat them like nurturers. Don't objectify them. See them as a thing. Like, how can I enjoy this person? We have such a low class, nasty culture. It's getting ugly. It's getting uglier all the moments. It's like a riptide just dragging us away from our personal integrity and values.
You're right. And then his wife, he sees as the other half is better. They even say better half, right? Yeah, there's like that connection is like, in other words, he's the connection to his wife is so intimate and close that the wife is very near, and the others are like, they're my mother, right? There's no confusion, right? Like,
I think I got this.
Atmavat
sarva bhuteshu.
There you go. Matre vat pari dhareshu atmavat sarva bhuteshu. Nityananda Chandra, this guy.
Nityananda Chandra, this guy's on it. He hung out with me yesterday, and his nice
He's
kids.
a New Yorker now. He's in New York.
He's a New Yorker. All right. Text.
And reaping the benefits. I saw, it was so cool too, because while that kirtan was going on, it was going on like on this grassy area of the park that's right up against like the children's playground, which is, where there's like an iron fence around it.
Yeah.
And so as this kirtan was going on, you could see some of the mothers in the playground with their kids enjoying the kirtan and looking after the kids, both. It was a perfect setup. And I saw Nityananda Chandra's wife in there. I saw Janaki in there, and they're dancing around and having a good time. And it was benefits of being in New York. So much happening.
He's still trying to sell us in New York City, Mara. You notice that?
Come on, look at what you can do in one day. Pop from the Bhakti Center here to Washington Square Park over there, and everything. So much happening.
Alrighty, where are we? Text.
Oh, we haven't finished 17. The king will respect all women.
All women as if they were his own mother, and he will treat his own wife as his other half of his body. He will be just like an affectionate father to his citizens, and he will treat himself as the most obedient servant of the devotees, who will always preach the glories of the Lord. Text 18. The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self, and he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. He will intimately associate with liberated persons. That's a good quality of a king. And he will be a chastising hand to all of the impious
persons.
Persons.
There's commonly you hear in this Vedic lore, right? In these Vedic stories, whether it's from Ramayana, whether it's from Mahabharata, whether it's from the Puranas, there's a lot of exchange that we're seeing between the ruler and the brahmanas. Right? Yeah. The ruler has full-on executive power, right? And the brahmanas, the wise people, they have zero executive power, right? The ruler has physical power and military power. He himself is like, physically powerful, and he's the commander of the military, and the brahmana, nothing, right? Skinny little old guy, right? The king has opulence. He's living in a palace, and the brahman is living in a hut. Right? But they're associating closely. Because the king needs that wisdom, and the fact is the king, a man, right, that wields that kind of power generally, has a certain drive about him, right? A certain I don't know if you want to call it like an alpha male thing or whatever, right? But he's driven, and the power that he has. When you have that kind of physical power, it's easy to be like, it's natural to be like ready to wield it at any moment, right? Something's going wrong, I'm going to deal with it.
Right.
Watch me, here I go. But because he's been raised with an appreciation of the wise people, those brahmanas could just say, hold it, right? Not necessary right now. There are other options, so let's temper your aggressiveness right now, and see what other options are available, right? And that's a very beautiful kind of balance, that you don't necessarily see, in our modern day, right? That ultimately, that king had to answer to these simple, living, wise, peaceful people who weren't like full on. I don't want to say they weren't full pacifists, but in other words, they understood the need that sometimes the king has to be strong and exert that strength for the benefit of and the safety and the protection of the people. They got that. They weren't like totally sentimental, but they were dispassionate, and so they could understand that's always the last resort, and they could advise the king when it's not necessary, and to try other options.
All right. Continuing on, my friend. Text 19. The king is the master of the three worlds, and he is directly empowered by the supreme personality of Godhead. He is without change, and he is an incarnation of the supreme, known as a Shakti-Avesh avatar. Being a completely liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all the material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience. So this is it. The divine right of kings spelled out very clear right here.
Mm-hmm. And that the king is a philosopher, right? He's not merely a strong man. He's not merely a politician, but he's a philosopher, right? By saying being a liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience. That's a philosopher, right? That's someone that's thinking deeply about life, and that deep thinking is going to help him help him, right? You say absolute power corrupts absolutely. It corrupts if you're not a deep philosopher. If you haven't realized deep things about life. But if you have, well, then you can wield that power and not be corrupted by it.
Whatever. Oh, sorry. Text 20. The king, being uniquely powerful and heroic, will have no competitor. He will travel around the globe on his victorious chariot, holding his invincible bow in his hand and appearing exactly like the sun, which rotates on its own orbit from the south. Text 21.
There's some. Let me ask you this, Raghunath. Like, I think when people look at royalty nowadays,
yeah,
like you take say the British royalty and all that, we look at that and we say, this is ridiculous, right?
It's ridiculous.
They got the scepter, they're walking around with this crown.
I say
on.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, they got this crown and they're carrying around.
Riding her in a carriage pulled by horses.
Like, what are you? You're just born in this family. Yeah, you're just born in this family, and you're rich, and you got all this opulence that nobody needs, and the whole thing's pointless, right?
Yeah.
But I think it grows out of this original kind of royal tradition where the idea was when you see that king, every citizen is kind of awed, right? It's kind of like he's riding around on this chariot and he looks like he's a big guy. He's a big dude, right? He's got armor on and when you see
he's ready to give his life for you.
He's ready to give his life, but he's impressive in every way. It's like that's another category of human being in every way, right?
Right.
He's wiser than me. He's more powerful than me. He's got a history of incredible exploits. It's like, okay, I get it. Right? He's he's on another level, and that would inspire faith in the people, and honor, and that faith would allow him to do his duty. That it's like politics nowadays is just constant battle, to get anything done. The rulers battling with other rulers because there's the whole checks and balance systems, and there's the press and there's the public, and the rulers always worried about like, public image and and all that. And here it's like, look, I'm trained, I'm powerful, I'm being guided by wise people, and I'm like, I've got strength, and people are looking at him saying, okay, like that. I couldn't do his job. He's on a whole nother level. So the chariot and the pageantry and the regalness and all of that, it's kind of is meant to instill faith.
Yeah.
Everything I say today is just like, yeah. All right.
I'm next.
You can bounce back.
I'm sorry.
Are you tired?
I'm a little tired, truthfully. I woke up
Okay.
5 hours of sleep and
All right.
jogged.
All right.
I did my pranayama.
That's cool.
Took my
That's
cold shower. Made my chai.
All right. But did you eat something when you got home last night? And what was it, Raghunath?
Did I eat something? What kind of question?
Yeah, I mean, did you have some of those organic peanut butter cups or something? Tell the truth.
If you want to know the honest truth? Yes, I did. Yes, I did eat something.
Okay.
last night.
I think it's affecting you right now.
Delicious.
How many of those donuts did you smuggle home, by the way? how many of
Did
those?
smuggle them home. Me and my
I
daughter
think you
smuggled
figure it
a whole
out,
bunch
Raghunath.
of those donuts. They were mini donuts. You could take
They're
5
mini
and make
ones.
one.
I know.
Yeah. That was, yeah. Okay. This, when King traveled, okay, what number are we on? The King,
21.
Was it
when the
21,
King-
21.
What number, Mara? Help me.
21?
21.
When the king travels all over the world, other kings, as well as the demigods, will offer him all kinds of presentations, giving him gifts. Their queens will also consider him the original king, who carries in his hands the emblems of a club and a disc, and he will sing of his fame, for he will be as reputable as the supreme personality of Godhead. Text 22. This king, this protector of the citizens, is an extraordinary king and is equal to that of the Prajapati demigods. Prajapatis are the progenitors. For the living facility of all citizens, he will milk the earth, which is like a cow. That's some type of interesting analogy. The earth is like a cow, and he will milk the earth. He will extract from the earth. Not only that, but he will level the surface of the earth with the pointed ends of his plow, wood, breaking all the hills exactly as Indra. Oh, with his bow, not his plow. Breaking all the hills exactly as King Indra. The heavenly kings breaks mountains with his powerful thunderbolt.
That'll come up later. We'll read about that. But this is you. We also read this. This will sound totally far out and mythological and so on when we hear this. But the king, the responsibility of the king was that not only that all the citizens were cared for, but that he had to inspire piety in the people, right? What are you doing, Raghunath? Are you playing with Rooney?
I'm hugging my daughter before she goes to school, just trying to drag her into the camera
It looks
frame.
really weird. What's going on with that? It's because she's off camera and you're...
My daughter.
Okay. But the king would have to inspire a type of piety in the people so that they would live a pious life. And if he could do that, then the earth and the devas would reciprocate, right? The earth would be bountiful, right? That there would be no drought, that there would be no flooding, that it was the faith was that if the people were living right, that nature would cooperate, right?
It's interesting.
And
I think
honor
the
that.
king has a reciprocal a symbiotic relationship with the demigods. It's so interesting. Huh? I mean, it's not just myth. He's not just like, okay, he's the king, so he's actually has a divine right. He has divine dharma. He has a powerful dharma that he has to do, and it's going to be different than all the other citizens. He's not just up there enjoying the fruits of the past kings, etc. He's got tons of responsibility even like intergalactic responsibility that affects right, that affects the celestial realm.
Well, both ways, because also, as you're saying, he's not just enjoying. Why? Because it said, and maybe Nityananda Chandra can help with this one too, that a certain percentage of the karma of the kingdom, the king has to bear himself. You understand? So in other words, if the kingdom, it's said that you're responsible for how all these people behave through your governing, through your example and inspiration. The people need. I'm trying to say 1/7. No, he's got a question mark. I don't think it's 1/7. Okay, you Google that one. Okay, but through his inspiration, through his guidance, through his governorship, through his empowering qualified teachers, through his emphasis, on the depth of the culture, and the people were meant to be inspired to live a pious life, and he would what if they do. Karmically, he benefits from that in a very substantial way. And if they don't, then he bears the bad karma in a very substantial way. So imagine if you were responsible for a group of people, and if they were misbehaving, you would have to bear the karma of that. How seriously you would take your role,
Sure.
So that's part of the whole
got a lot of
training that they're
blame.
going through too.
If things were going wrong, if there was problems with the weather, if there was like overcrowding of prisons and lots of thieves and rogues on the street, the king's got full responsibility. He's owning his responsibility as the leader, just like a good leader of a platoon or a good leader of a company. If there's something wrong with the company, you don't push it off all these dumb managers. Buck stops here. I'm fully responsible because I was the leader. The king felt the same way.
And not only in terms of reputation. Right?
Radical, responsible part of the politicians.
That's right. But not only in terms of his reputation, but or his ability to get reelected, but in terms of the karma that he would personally have to bear himself in the future.
Oh, here's a good quote from Nityananda Chandra from the Manu Samhita. However, the Manu
you are a big fan of Manu Samhita.
I'm a very big fan.
I remember back in your brahmachari days.
I used to have my own Manu Samhita I would bring with me.
Can you believe it says this?
However, the Manu Samhita states that a king enjoys the benefit of 1/6 of the religious acts of his subjects, Dharmic, right? But also has to bear the burden of 1/6 of their sinful deeds. So if one of the citizens is acting in an inappropriate way, the king takes that karma.
That's right.
Very interesting.
So that means you really have to invest yourself in, not just lapping up the luxury of the position,
walking around and
but like really
or whatever,
really trying to inspire a higher character in all of the subjects. And I think we're done for today, Raghunath. I think we ran out of time.
That's it. Mara, give us something to take away for our week.
Okay. The tsunami of bhakti is inundating the world.
It is. The tsunami of bhakti is inundating the world. I feel it.
Thought you'd like that. We need to train in character and competence.
Surf's up, AJ Sullivan says. What did you say? I was reading the message board.
We need to train in character and competence.
Character and competence, both.
Character, competence, yes.
When there isn't trust, there's a need for transparency.
Yeah.
Take that away, Raghu, and work with that today.
Insightful.
Follow the guidance of the Brahman's wisdom.
Always important. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
The regalness of kings is meant to instill faith. A king's due.
That's a joke nowadays.
That's a good T-shirt.
The regalness of kings.
T-shirts I wouldn't wear from Wisdom of the Sages.
We should have that.
The regalness of kings.
The king's duty is to inspire piety and bear karma.
Yes. Okay.
Another weak shirt. But yes.
Great power brings great responsibilities.
There you go. There's your shirt. I think is that Star Trek or something like that? Or not Star Trek. Is that Star Wars or something?
Maybe.
No, Yoda. Something like that. Is that Yoda?
Where's my takeaway, Mara? I wrote one too.
You did? I didn't see one.
I did.
And you can really fall in love over a donut.
Matt got him right, that one.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have you eaten those donuts already, Raghunath? Or are you gonna
Eat them all.
enjoy
Are you
them?
kidding? I ate them all on the way home. That's why I'm so gloomy today. My head looks like a donut right now. I thought I wrote one. Oh, it was something about absolute power doesn't necessarily corrupt absolutely. That's what I wrote.
That's
Oh, I
pretty
never-
weak
You
know what?
have
t-shirt.
to share it with me. For me
Never
to
sent
say
it. There we go. Absolute power doesn't necessarily correct absolutely.
Correct.
Booyah. Oh, another day for a beautiful day, my friends. We're going to surf that tsunami of devotion. Whew. It's really
Now, hold
happening.
it. What's
And you
Karuna
got-
is looking like I Dream of Genie over here today or something like that. What's going on?
Before we get into Karuna, let's talk
Come on.
about our responsibility today, Kaustubha. Our
What's that?
responsibility is everyone listening to this podcast must spread this bhakti love to whomever they meet. You must go to them and share, hey, send a link to the podcast. If you think like this was a particularly good podcast, or you have a particular, send it to a friend who's on the edge, who's sitting on the fence and needs some spiritual life. Sometimes Nityananda Chandra told me this story once or yesterday. He told this story that he was calling people to invite them to a festival. And one of the persons said, answer the phone, goes, what? He goes, do you know where I am? I'm on a ledge of a building about to jump off of it.
Get out.
You don't know how much you could change a person's life by being a little enthusiastic about your bhakti practice and giving to someone else. Make a commitment to give this podcast or however else you study the Bhagavatam, or give them a book or a link to a lecture or something. Give it to somebody. You never know who's really needing that right now.
Especially the podcast.
That's how the tsunami starts to inundate the universe.
That's right. That's right.
Mara, are you going to do that today? Are you going to give it away?
Yeah. I do it every day, Prabhu. I'm the one who uploads it all.
But you never notice or thank me. You only complain.
Lord Vishnu knows. Lord Vishnu is knowing, Mara.